Laser on.
Welcome back. That was the great 80s flick, Real Genius, a very fun and funny movie about science and innovation.
Absolutely. Science was kind of a prominent theme back then in the summer of 1985. You had Back to the Future, you had Weird Science, a lot of Revenge of the Nerds. So nerds were everywhere.
Nerds were cool. They still are cool, actually.
Absolutely.
Joining us, some of the stars of Real Genius. With us in studio, Gabriel Jarret, who played Mitch, and of course went on to act in many
Speaking of nerds, we've got
playing the part
right
of a nerd.
Yeah.
Yes, and of course, John Gries, one of the country's greatest that guy actors, played Lazlo in Real Genius. But of course, you also know him from Napoleon Dynamite and many other films.
That dude.
That dude.
Fantastic, John Gries.
That always made us laugh, also in Real Genius. And of course, we have Martha Coolidge, director of the film. Thank you so much for being with us. You know, your career, Martha, started with Valley Girl, but it also has gone on to win numerous Emmys as well as 3 Independent Spirit Awards for your film, Rambling Rose. So a pleasure to have you. You know, I want to kick off this conversation with getting a little bit of behind the scenes of this film, those memories. And Gabe, starting with you, you were 14 at the time of this movie. Among that being awkward in general, your first kiss with Jordan. Enough said, right?
Right.
No,
Was that your first kiss?
No, actually, the first kiss was with Patty D'Arbanville because of the way we shot it.
Oh.
So, yeah, that was actually, and to answer your question, that was actually my first kiss.
Yeah, really?
Ever.
Other than Mom.
Other than Mom, yeah.
Other than Mom.
Other than Mom, that was my first kiss. So when you see the scene and you see that look of panic on
Right.
her face, that's not acting.
So let's talk about like the fact that the film borrows from supposedly a lot of the pranks that happened at MIT and Caltech, like real life pranks. Yeah. Now, you know, they were inspired by that. How much of that is real? I mean, did you actually do some research to find out this is how these crazy kids actually live their lives?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We did an enormous amount of research and reading. We talked to people. We went to the actual pranks night when we saw waterfalls coming out of second-story windows and all that stuff. So these pranks are all based on a prank that we heard about. They could be a little better than the prank or a little more. And the car prank has been done everywhere.
It sort of feels like we're all sitting around reminiscing. It makes me want you guys to do a sequel. This wasn't really an instant hit. This actually didn't become a hit until years later when people sort of picked up on it.
Yeah.
When you first saw it in the theaters, what was your reaction?
I loved it because I looked a lot better than I felt on the set shooting it. And I loved the movie. So, I mean, I you know, it was my first film, so I was like really happy about it.
And now,
it
30
turned out
years
great.
later, watching
30 years
it
later,
after years?
I still love the movie, but it's kind of like your mom videotaping your junior prom and then playing it in perpetuity forever and ever.
Well, we did get fantastically reviewed, and of all the movies that summer, the issue was, I think, more that at that time, and you can't come up with a fresh idea, there's no real such thing. Brian Grazer had come to me and said, I want to make being smart heroic, which is definitely what we did, because this is a very smart movie.
It is.
And it came out, though, at the same week, on the same weekend as 2 other ones, and we did fine, but it really became a super hit on HBO, which it really was, and as a rental video, and by certain groups of people. But the truth is, it was very entertaining, and people liked it, and there was just a lot of competition that summer.
You know, John, I'm curious, though, because we sort of, and Martha, you put it perfectly, it was sort of how do we make the nerd endearing and the hero. And it's sort of this age of nerd power. And Gabe was telling us, a lot of people came up to him and said, that was me, I was picked on, and in this movie, we won. And your character sort of played the ultimate phase of that. You know, you were the ultimate genius and had to find seclusion in that. So did you experience that, people coming up to you?
Oh, absolutely. The character was in an odd way. You know, it's interesting, Martha talking about wanting to have a heroic genius or you know, intelligence being heroic, which Chris Knight is. But I think that a lot of people saw that in Lazlo too, which was really interesting. Even though he was this subterranean guy, he was purely heroic because he still had his, you know, the reason that he was hiding underground was because he couldn't handle some of the things that he'd done with his intelligence and how powerful that was. Very hard, a big responsibility. And so, you know, he ended up doing things like, you know, getting into the Frito-Lay sweepstakes as opposed to building the next great, horrible, you know, war machine. Right?
One of the most interesting things is the professor, who was one of the leading laser scientists in the world and was working on space-based laser weapons at the time. Martin Gunderson organized a screening just a couple of years ago where he invited about 33 scientists. They were from USC and Caltech and other places. And in that 33, there were like 12 Nobel Prize winners, and they all said this movie is one of the reasons I became a scientist. So
Really?
I think that Brian's goal was met, and I hear this all the time.
That's pretty cool, actually, because one thing is for sure, we need more scientists, especially here in America. Not to get on my soapbox, but the truth of the matter is that we are failing miserably in this country in terms of educating our youth when it comes to STEM. But anyway,
No, I'll join you on that soapbox.
Another Chuck
if
Nice's soapbox.
it's a movie that inspires people, God bless it. I mean, that's, you know.
And actually, Martha, you were talking about the money behind it in the military-industrial complex. You know that they actually made the laser. The Navy's got one.
Oh, yes, I know.
Yeah.
At the time, I asked Martin to invent a laser that could happen, but that specifically those elements wouldn't happen. But in fact, they did do a frozen, gas laser later. It's true.
And if we could all hashtag this movie something, now if it was being released 30 years later in the social media world. Awkward?
I hate popcorn.
I'd say forget your lasers. Forget your lasers. We got drones.
Now I know what to get you for your birthday. All right. Well, that does it for us tonight. We just want to thank our guests, Gabriel, Jarret, Jonathan Gries, and Martha Coolidge. Thanks for being with us, giving us some insight and behind the scenes of this great film.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, a big thank you to all of you who joined in the conversation on Twitter, Facebook. Make sure you check us out on HLNTV.com and see you in May for the next news and movie.